strong and fair. You may have heard the famous expression that favor fortunes the bold, and I think that's often true. I like to add the corollary to that, but fortune favors the bold, but fortune disfavors the reckless. A lot of people get those mixed up. They think they're being bold when they're really being reckless. I mean, you can think of a lot of different examples of that in the news and other places, just in your life, I'm sure. So, as you read the title of this, you may be wondering why I labeled it strong but fair rather than tough but fair, because tough but fair is the kind of popular saying that goes along with these ideas. And I think, the listener is very sophisticated. I'm going to let you kind of come to your own conclusion. I think obviously if you're listening to this, you're more than insightful enough to be able to probably figure out why I label it strong but fair instead of tough but fair. So if fortune favors the bold but doesn't favor the reckless, what do I want to say about that? So one is that it's good to be bold. Being bold to me is far from being outrageous. Being bold really just means almost being one's highest self, and it has a high degree of self-awareness, because you can't be bold if you're not authentic, and you can't be authentic if you're not self-aware. If you're not self-aware, but you try to be bold, and it's really just like overconfidence instead of confidence, because it's based upon something that's not real and something that's not really authentic, and something that is not true to you, and something that is not well known to you, because if it's not real, obviously you can't know it well. So being bold is important, but not being reckless. So let me just get into that a little bit and relate it to strong but fair. So people that are people pleasers, or try to manipulate people in other ways, there's a difference between trying to have influence, which is basically, in my mind, a win-win, that you're trying to help guide other people, but not just to bend them to your will, but in accordance with what's good for them, is in addition to what's good for you, and being open to them guiding you as well, kind of a mutual guidance. That's a lot different than manipulation. But people that just try to manipulate people, I think that's a sign of weakness. And people can manipulate overtly, through trying to control other people in different ways, or they could do it covertly through passive-aggressive. I mean, there's so much. Maybe I shouldn't say this in this language, because words are power, and if you see it and recognize it, then it's not necessarily a good thing. But for lack of a better way of saying it, but I'll try to find a better way of saying it in the future if I can, is that there's a lot of passive-aggressive tendencies in the world. I think there's a lot of trying to control people by not pretending to be helpful, but kind of like putting a good face on it, a good spin on it. And I think that, that is a form of weakness, either trying to over-control or trying to, let people control you. I mean, some people just let others control them because they don't want to take responsibility for their lives, and they would rather let other people tell them what to do, and then blame other people. You told me to do this, you told me to do that. And then the common rejoinder to that sometimes is, well, if I told you to jump off a cliff, I've heard other people say that, would you do it? So don't, if you want to, I mean, because you have to do what makes sense to you, but don't, if it makes sense to you, try to control people, and don't let people control you. Be strong, stand on your own 2 feet, take responsibility for your life, but be fair. And by fair, I mean kind of like recognize that each person has a portion in life, like God or life or whatever you want to call it. Everyone has, their own food, their own clothing, their own relationships, their own shelter. their own occupation. Like everybody's parceled out based upon a variety of factors, including, effort and luck and whatever else is involved, their own portion of life, and concentrate on your own portion. Don't try to take other things that don't belong to you or not are meant to you, which other people have worked for or been given. A lot of things that you see in the news or just in life and relationships is people get co-entangled, or they try to take things that don't really belong to them. And this is kind of an amorphous concept. Maybe it makes sense to you, or maybe it doesn't. But some people call it like staying in your lane. Like some people have a very narrow lane though. So I believe in staying in your lane, but I believe in having an expansive lane. That doesn't mean like going into other people's lane or assimilating other people into their lane, but it means being multifaceted, not being simplistic, being a complex person, which doesn't mean complicated, but it means that you have different dimensions to you. You could be, outgoing, or you could be extrovert or introvert. You don't have to just be one side of the many types of qualities that some people tend to be. So be strong, stand on your own 2 feet, take responsibility for your life. Be bold at times, because fortune does favor the bold, but don't be reckless, and be fair. Hold on to what's yours and don't let people take it from you. I mean, that's another shortcoming. Some people just, say la vie, or brochere, or if it's meant to be, it'll be. I mean, sometimes you have to fight for things. Sometimes people are unfair with you, and if you don't fight, you'll wind up with nothing. So fight for what's rightfully yours, but don't fight to take things that don't belong to you. So be strong, but be fair.